Hello and welcome to the Venue Success Podcast. I'm your host, Tirzah Caffee, and our theme in season 2 is Tools of the Trade, the pros behind the process. And today I am joined for the second time by the amazing Justin Sutton. He's the founder of Nuptial and Vowed, which might be new to you to hear about. And that is why I invited him back today, is because he has something new and very exciting to share with our listeners today. So excited to have you back on the show today, Justin.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
You made me amazing, so I feel amazing.
You are amazing. Okay, but
Thank
before
you.
we get started, it is time for Crazy Stories with Tirzah because people have lost their minds. Today's story is just a short one, and it's still to this day an annoying one. And I'll tell you why here in a moment. But we had one of these high maintenance, and sidebar, this is an insurance story. So we had one of these very high maintenance brides that, this event was like the event of the century for her family, right? And we tried so very hard to let them know, like, hey, by the way, you're going a little overboard. This is an all-inclusive venue. Like, we're doing everything for you, right? Like, just we had to calm her down a lot. Like, you don't really actually need that. Like, she just wanted to spend money. Ultimately, that was what it was. And there are those people these days that really, their parents give them a $60,000 budget and they are going to spend every last penny of that 60 grand, whatever. The day of the wedding, as much as we tell them, you can bring 3 tubs of items, because we know 3 big tubs is plenty of stuff, right? Like just their little decorations and stuff. They pulled up in a U-Haul trailer. We're like, holy moly, you don't have to rent chairs. You don't have to rent tables. What could possibly be inside of this U-Haul trailer? Well, they pulled it up to the front of the entrance to the garden. And so our garden ceremony area is kind of like right next to the parking lot. But we have this huge berm, beautiful trees, all this kind of stuff. You can't see it, but we have like anywhere from a 1 foot to 2.5 foot retaining wall that kind of divides that whole area, right? You could probably guess what I'm getting at. So they pull up their freaking U-Haul trailer, and I didn't notice it in the moment, right? If I had, this would have been a completely different story. But they pulled right up next to the retaining wall and they knocked that sucker and tipped it. And so there's and I didn't notice till after, but I know without a doubt that they hit that retaining wall. Do I have it on video? No. Do I have proof? Well, no, except that I know that that's exactly where they parked and whatever. And so it was about I would say 30-foot length of retaining wall that just went shoop and just tilted back. And I mean, this is a major damage, because you can't even, my husband's a bodybuilder and he went out there and he tried to push that thing, wouldn't even budge because the whole thing is like concreted together too, right? And so this was before the days of us having event insurance, right? So we have like property insurance, but I'm just so curious your thoughts about I have thoughts how I should have handled this better. But so at the time, we were just taking a credit card on file for damages. And of course, we've always had our own personal property insurance, but it's like a freaking high deductible too, right? And so you're always like weighing if it's worth it or not. And then do I actually want to pull on my policy and will it go up? And all of those things that we think about, right? So anyway, after the event was over, I contacted them. Well, of course, the bride and groom didn't want to talk to me because guess what? Their dad's a lawyer. And so he gets involved and he's like, yeah, well, you can't prove anything, Tirzah. Like, you can't prove that we did that. Well, I kept pressing. I'm like, dude, like you absolutely did. And here's a bid for the repair. And he's like, yeah, well, we're not paying a penny of that, but I'll come over with my son-in-law and we'll try to like push it back in place for you. So then I'm thinking, I didn't have Justin back in my head, but I knew in my brain, I'm like, I should not have 2 people on my property trying to push a concrete wall up, because then what's going to happen? They're going to get hurt and then they'll come after me.
Yep.
Right? So I was like, excuse me, sir, no, you can't come back. We just cut our losses. But here's why still to this day I'm salty about it. The wall is still tilted. The wall is still looking janky in the parking lot. But listen, it was never, it's not seen in any pictures. It's just in a parking
Yeah.
lot, whatever. Like it would be set. I mean, this would probably be, if I had to guess, a ten to $15,000 repair on that retaining wall. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's my stupid little story that still annoys me to this day.
What would probably have annoyed you more is if you called and reported that as a claim to your insurance carrier, and then they said, "Sorry, that's not covered," because that's probably what would have happened
Yeah,
because it's a retaining.
probably. Yeah, exactly. So here's an interesting question for you. Would I have had any recourse if they potentially had their own like insurance? I
So,
mean, in what situation could I have had that stupid wall repaired by these people? Or is
so
there?
here's the if it is damaged by any sort of vehicle, it would follow the vehicle insurance first. This is something most people don't know in the wedding
Interesting.
industry. Like if they had event insurance, maybe, but event insurance, even though if you have in your contract that the event insurance is primary, if the damage is done by a vehicle, any sort of commercial auto, personal auto, that is always primary over everything else. So that's, probably would, let's just say U-Haul's probably not paying for that. So it would have then reverted to their personal auto if they didn't buy U-Haul's
Yep.
insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So
That was a complicated one for
yeah,
sure.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's, but recently, one of my best friends here in town, a caterer backed into their AC unit and the caterer's commercial auto paid for that. So
Interesting. Interesting. And I mean, probably a different deal when it's a vendor, right? And it's like we all kind of, it's just, I think it's this dad, there was no way he was going to pay a penny for that stupid retaining wall. There was no possible way. But anyway, there's my silly little story. But things like that, like having cars on their property, I think that is a very important conversation. Like we are so diligent about even the signs that we have around the property, covering our butts just with, so if someone does something, even like the gate, we have a million signs about which direction the gate opens and which way to exit because people have tried to come after me about, well, we didn't know the gate opened a certain way and it scratched my car and it hit my bumper. And so me being able to go be like, I did my due diligence, talking about like risk around your property, like I did my due diligence. There's all these signs. You neglected the signs.
yeah,
And that's actually covered my butt a few times just being able to say, hey, listen, like, even though we didn't get insurance involved, I'm like, you don't have a leg to stand on because I had all
yeah.
of these signs and you neglected them.
Well,
But
and
I
that
mean, that's just me trying to scare people. I don't know if that's the way to do it, but
no, I mean, I think, and again, this is probably insurance sucks. And I'm the first one to say it. Everybody hates it. I do it every day and I hate it some days because, it's not built to be the cure all. It's built to kind of be a last resort. And that's
mhm.
the way that like my approach is. And like what we do, it's like, hey, let's help you to do some of these things that you have agency over and you can control the outcome. And then for those things that you can't clean up with either a process or a sign or a procedure or,
Mhm.
something that you can do, like, let's figure all those things out first. And that's, and to kind of
Yes.
get into my philosophy and all this stuff is like, hey, if you just need a quote or you just need cheaper insurance, like there's 10 million people out there that can do that for you. It's not a hard job. The hard job is let's think about what happens when somebody comes on your property, either it be a guest or a
Mhm.
client or a vendor. Let's think about all these things that could happen. And what are some of those things that you've got control over that can manage risk, and let's figure those out first because they're probably not going to cost you a whole lot of money. You're only going to have to do them one time, and
Mhm.
you're not going to have to be worried about some third party who is, trying to reduce what claims they paid year over year by 10%,
Right. Right.
like an
No, it's
adjuster.
so true. Yeah,
So,
and we did go into detail about this. So if you're listening to this episode, go back to our very first time earlier in this season where we went kind of in a deep dive into risk management. And honestly, what Justin is saying is so true, is that at the end of the day, you don't want to just have a policy that's just gonna, you don't want to get to the point where you have to use your policy, right? Like you want to get, no one wants to deal with that. No one wants to get into an insurance battle. He said, she said, ending a time with a client in such a negative manner, potentially getting a bad review, all this kind of stuff that could be avoided by just having someone have a outside perspective on your property and help you realize, oh my gosh, like this could be a really danger area for you. And here's some things that you could do to eliminate some potential risk, looking at your policies and guidelines and contracts and just finding little, maybe just things that you don't know to even look for that could protect you
Well,
greatly.
great example. So my daughter and another venue, she and her husband are good friends of ours too. And our daughters play softball together. So Saturday we were at the ballpark and we had a softball tournament, and her venue manager calls and is like, "Hey, we're having lightning and thunder. Like, what are the guidelines? What are the procedures there?" And I said, "Jessica, as she came over to me, we were like in a break, and she's like, "What are we supposed to do with lightning and stuff here?" And I said, "Well, do you have our severe weather policy? Like, have you seen that?" She's like, "What? I didn't know that." I was like, "Well, look, it's in your folder. I'll send you." I just texted her the link while we were sitting there. She sent that to her venue manager, and it says, if you hear thunder within 30 seconds of lightning, everybody has to be inside. No more outdoor stuff. Like, those are the type of things that, again, if you have a written policy or procedure, don't leave it up to insurance. We've got the best on the insurance side, but even at that, just take the time and be intentional and think about ahead of time, what can I do that's going to manage this situation if it happens?
No, I love that. And I think that's a perfect lead into just kind of part two of our discussion about just the way that you serve our community. And I think the biggest thing I want to say to listeners is that Justin said it. There's thousands of different insurance brokers. There's lots of different places that you could get it. Maybe you could even get it cheaper, but listen, if we're all in this space, we understand that like cheapest isn't always best either. And so my mission is share with you who I feel like is the best of the best. And one of the reasons why I feel like Justin is the standout person for insurance is that he specifically works with venues. He understands venues. And I could say that about a lot of the vendors that I work with, like not vendors, but like wedding professionals. I'm thinking today I was having a conversation about wedding industry ads, like venue ads, and like, wouldn't you want to work with someone that does ads that specifically understands the market and the venue space? Wouldn't you want to work with someone in SEO that specifically understands venues, but is not just kind of, shotgunning all different types of SEO? Like, I really think people that are able to niche down and understand, when I have conversations with Justin about being a wedding venue owner, I'm not having to explain stuff to him. He understands instantly what my risks are and what my needs are, which is so very important. And so my first question for you, Justin, is what makes Nuptial and Vowed different from every other commercial insurance person out there? And before you answer that, maybe can you just talk about Vowed for a second, because we skipped over that.
Yeah.
I've been hearing
No,
about it so much.
no.
Tell listeners about Vowed and then also
Yeah,
what
yeah.
makes those different.
No. I mean, first off, I appreciate the compliment that you gave me. Like, I'm not here I'm just here to serve people. Like, I have the same kind of heart that everybody else does in the wedding industry. Like, I love the people I work with, and that's why I love my job. And I think, that drives me to want to be better, like, every day. So I want to be better for the people who live on their property. And like, it's personal to them. It's super personal to me. So that's something that is the most important thing to me and why I want to do better, because I feel like the people I work with that work hard need something better. And to tell you a little bit about Val, so the last 10, 12 years, we've worked with a lot of different companies who will insure a venue. And my job is kind of to find the best people who do that depending on certain things in certain areas. Like, we've got to have all the best options there because that's just kind of what's expected of me if I'm going to be quote unquote expert. I mean, I have to be, but pursuit of that is, every day.
Exactly.
So anyway, that for a long time, we've worked with a lot of really good companies there. And so I never envisioned that we would have something special to us that we built that was designed specifically for wedding venues. But last year, a carrier who is very, very in touch and aware in the hospitality industry reached out to us and said, "Hey, we see what you're doing here. This is adjacent to some of our core competencies outside of the wedding venue. We want to understand the wedding venue, how it works, how you're an expert, what you do, all that stuff." So we got into that discussion and they said, "Okay, well, we want you to build a program specific to your people." And so that's what Vowed is. And, the reason for the name is because, I mean, it's a commitment. And I think a lot of times insurance companies lose sight of what they're really for. Like, you're there to pay a claim when something bad
Mhm.
happens. And so, your couples are making a commitment to each other. You're making a commitment to them. We, as Nuptial, are making a commitment to you, and our carrier is making a commitment to us that they, have all the best stuff and what's needed for you. And it was built by me. So,
I love that. I just want to interrupt you for a moment because as you're talking, I'm thinking back to a, a couple really terrible times at my venue. Two situations. I won't belabor them too much, but one was a really catastrophic accident that happened in front of our venue. They crashed through our monument. It was a $30,000 monument that we had out there with, our historic sign and all the stuff, and ambulances, major injuries, all this kind of stuff. I'm standing there on the side of the road on the phone with my insurance agent. And they are there with you during some of the worst times as a business owner. And it matters. It chokes me up to even say that. It matters who's on the other side of that phone call. It
yeah,
really, really does. The second time was in Hurricane Florence in 2016, and we had a 150-year-old tree fall on our historic venue. It took them 3 days to get it off, two cranes. I'm standing in a hurricane on the phone with who? My insurance guy. And so this is just an important relationship. It's a
yeah.
really important relationship.
One thing that is special about this whole, and I'll tell you a couple, not just one, but this was built by me who understands what venue owners need. Secondly, the people behind the scenes who are seeing this and interpret, like underwriting, they understand the wedding industry. So part of my job is to help them to understand what's going on too. So that everyone else over here who is like, "Oh, maybe we can insure a venue, maybe we'll find a carrier." No, this is like, I understand it. The people I'm talking to understand it. And then furthermore, on the claim side, where when you talk about something really bad that happens, the big differentiator of what we're doing here is a very white gloves approach to claims. I know everyone who will touch your
Mhm.
claim. I
Mhm.
have their cell number. I know where they are. I know how they're going to treat a claim.
Mhm.
We have
Mhm.
inside legal counsel. We review all these like stuff. Like, it is a totally different ball game than anyone else. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that has really like been different to me is the personal nature of everything. Like, the
Mhm.
claim side, the guy who is writing the million, 2 million, 3, $5 million checks
Mhm.
is going to probably meet me at the airport and deliver a $4 million check to you
Mhm.
versus, so
Mhm.
that's the difference. Is it is a totally different mindset on the claim side. And that's where that vow, that promise or commitment, that's what's different. So anyway,
No, I love it. And, we've talked about this a lot in this whole season of, talking to wedding pros and professionals just helping us as venue owners. And it's like, we as venue owners have so much more skin in the game, so much more. I mean, can you even compare us to a makeup artist or even like who's got some of the most expensive equipment? Maybe DJs, some photographers that have some really expensive pieces of equipment. It's not even a drop in the bucket
yep,
to what we have as venue owners. And a lot of us, unfortunately, our personal is interlinked with our business, right? Like, I hope that you've done, like, that's a whole nother conversation, but like, it is, if our venue fails, there's a lot personally at stake for us here. And it's not something to mess around with going and just getting the cheapest thing that you could find. And I think that if there's one thing that I could say to business owners out there, venue owners specifically, is that this is not an area to glance over or to brush over or to like, this should be one of the biggest conversations, the most important piece of the puzzle of building your business. This is like, if you're thinking about building your foundation, your insurance has to be one of those cornerstones, because
yeah,
something bad is going to happen. Hear me, people, something bad is going to happen. I'm not trying to like foretell your future, but that's just the cost of doing business. Something is going to
yeah,
happen. When you have at my venue 15,000 people at least a year on my property and they're drinking, something's going to happen, right? So, the second question for you is, if there's one piece of advice that you could give to venue owners listening out there, this is a loaded question, but what would that be?
I would tell you that most likely, and I can only say this because I've probably seen this less than 20 times in the thousands of phone calls that I've had and contracts that I've read. I don't know if I've read thousands of maybe 8,000 contracts, but your event insurance requirement in your contract is not serving you well. And the reason why, that should be your first line of your contract is the biggest risk control device that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So if your contract is not serving you well, the insurance that you buy from me or anybody else is not going to work the way it should. So two sentences in your contract can totally change the outcome of something that happens on property. And 99.98% of the contracts that I have read don't contain those two sentences. So the reason being, people like me don't give you advice around that area because it's not something they do and they don't get compensated for it. So take some time there and make sure that that is exactly what it needs to be and you get exactly what you need every time. Because if you don't, everything else is going to fall apart.
No, I think that's really, really, really good. And I could personally testify to that. I have, as a venue consultant, I have run contracts by Justin, and, he's like, whoops, you need to add this section. And so, very, very, very important. So, third question for you is, what is maybe an actionable step that a venue owner should take to make sure that their business is adequately protected? I know you said there's those couple sentences. We're not going to spill all of that today because it's
Yeah.
way too much for this podcast. But what are some other action items that a business venue owner can take?
I think probably the most impactful is making sure the alcohol service, if I look back over incident reports and all the stuff that we get from clients, you can track back almost all issues to alcohol. So if you're letting people hire their friends to serve alcohol, or you don't have a certificate from every single bartender, or you don't have, like, I kind of think of it in stages. Like, how do we move good to great? And so
Mm-hmm.
if I were telling somebody an actionable step, like, if you're just like, okay, they can bring in anybody they want to and serve, or let's just say it's self-serve. If you're doing self-serve, stop. Don't do that anymore. Do not
My
allow
goodness.
it. Never, ever allow self-serve. If you're not doing that and you're allowing somebody just to have their friend bartend, stop doing that and make sure that they are using somebody who has insurance and you're collecting a certificate from them to show that they're a legitimate business and they have insurance. Because fact of the matter is, if somebody gets hurt, their event policy when they get in a vehicle and they leave, every event policy, you may not know this, but every one of those excludes auto. So when they get in a car and turn it on and leave, unless that bartender has some coverage that you can pull from, you have nothing protecting you. And let's just be honest, in the court of public opinion, if that bartender overserves somebody, they leave your venue and kill somebody down the road, you're going to be responsible, not the bartender,
Uh-huh.
because you were the venue, you were the hub for everything, and you're an easy target. That bartender is anonymous and they're a hard target.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into that because this is I see this happen wrong all of the time. I actually heard of a venue owner this week that's allowing 18-year-olds to serve at the bar, which I think is so incredibly irresponsible. So if they're not covered under the umbrella of your policy, what covers that person? Like, how do you get that bartender covered? Just kind of explain that to
Yeah.
listeners, like
So I
what they
mean,
would do.
yeah, there are a lot of online sources. Like one of the things that we do for venues is like we have a video that we've put together that shows one of their bartender vendors how to purchase insurance for a single event or multiples so they can be insured when they are serving on property. So, there's a lot of different places online. Food liability insurance programs called, I think it's FLIPinsure.com or something like, I can't remember the URL exactly. They can do it that way. There are multiple others that sell single day policies, or, you can buy an annual policy for that. But if someone's serving, they should always, if they're not under your umbrella, they should always have a certificate of insurance and name
So
you
if
as a,
they're under your umbrella, do they need to be specifically named? If they're, say, a W-2 employee, so you have, but do they need to be specifically named under that umbrella?
no. So if they're a W-2 or a 1099 and they're basically, you control their time, manner, or method, they're an employee. And, if you have liquor liability, general liability, all that stuff, that's totally fine. Now, what I would tell you, and again, we're moving, how do we move good to great? If they're doing that and they're under your direction, I would recommend that there's some sort of alcohol policy that they sign off on as a server. That's a resource we provide to people. It's just, these are our policies, these are our procedures, this is what happens if you don't abide by them. You're not going to serve anybody who's visibly intoxicated, all that stuff. So again, let's get them to a point where they're insured. If they're under our umbrella, that's fine. We should have some sort of agreement with them that they know what our procedures are. Um,
Yes. And everything that you do to, like, I think, prove that you have trained these people adequately, I think is really great. For instance, like, all my bartenders went through ServeSafe. Like, they
yep.
understood, like, how to check an ID, how to see signs of intoxication. It takes like 30 minutes and then they get a little, certificate or whatever. But if something were to happen and I were to say, this is the steps that I took as a business owner, this is
Correct.
their certification. I've got all of my employees have the certification. It's just proving that I've done also my due diligence too. I don't know what you think about that.
I think that's a great idea. And I would
Mhm.
recommend, it's all about documentation.
Mhm.
Documentation
Mhm.
is the key to CYA. And I
Mhm.
think we both know what that means. So
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
got to cover yourself
Mhm.
and you just document everything. And then you have
Mhm.
the policies and procedures in place. And then if you need them, you have them. You may never need them, and hopefully you don't. But and that's one reason why, again, we're going back to the insurance. If you just go out and say to somebody, "Hey, bro, I'm in Missoula, Montana, and I need insurance for my venue," that is all you're going to get,
Mhm.
because that's the only way they get paid. And they don't care. They don't necessarily care about or understand the rest of your business. And so that is the cornerstone of why we're different.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you all of these resources, and we're going to have that conversation first. And we're going to give you some leverage over the outcome of things. And then we're going to have a really, really good insurance product that makes sure if we can't clean up the rest of this
Mm-hmm.
stuff with documents, policies, procedures, knowledge, whatever, best practices, we got an insurance policy for that. But that should always be built as last resort, even if it's the best thing since sliced bread.
No, I think that's so good. And I'm actually seeing recently an influx of people saying that they're having difficulty getting insurance for their venues because these insurance agencies don't understand the venue space. They don't know, like, because it's such a foreign thing to them, they're just like, nah, no, like, we're not even going to do that. And that's kind of a newer thing to me to be seeing. I don't know if it's like a post-COVID thing where people are like, I don't know what it is, but that's kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I just don't, I just think the industry as a whole doesn't like event halls. I mean, that's kind of
Mhm.
the thought. And then the other thing is like so few actually do it. I can't tell you how many Friday, for instance, I got a deck page from an owner of a venue in California. They had rated the entire thing as a party, wedding, or event planner. And that's immediately like I see that all the time. That's immediately, okay, this agent had no understanding of what this lady actually does, and they just threw something together. I mean,
My
I can't
goodness.
tell you how many times I see that, but it's, I mean, it's just talk to somebody who understands what's going on. I mean,
No,
if
absolutely.
it doesn't have to be me, but just make sure that that person has a good handle on what you actually do. If red flag number one, if you get an application from them that you have to fill out, run away
Interesting.
because that means they
Interesting.
don't understand what you do.
Okay. No, I like that. That's really great. That's very helpful advice. And listen, I will tell you, I recently switched to using Nuptial, and I'd heard about Justin for a while, have referred many clients to him. But when we kind of sold our business earlier this year and we were in the midst of changing everything over, I could tell you personally that I knew that Justin was going to be the first place that I went to just because the person that I previously worked with, while they were great, we had a long-term relationship. He was the one on the other end of the phone call with me trying to hold myself together. We had a good relationship, but there was a really deep lack of understanding about what my business really was. And I could tell you, I was the only wedding venue that he had on his portfolio. That was always uncomfortable to me. And I think about like how things could have potentially been different for me over the course of the years and all the things that we've had to deal with if we had a different situation. It is what it is, but I will just tell you, I'm careful who I recommend, and I wholeheartedly recommend you at least letting Justin and his team take a look at your policy, like, and get a quote or whatever it is. Let him see what you currently have. And there's no obligation here. I'm always a big believer that knowledge is the most important thing. As you're even listening to this podcast, you're gaining knowledge about some areas that you may have never thought of before. And so Justin's heart is that your biggest asset is protected. That's really all. That's where it's at, man. And so I feel a really deep peace of mind knowing that I'm protected the best that I can be. So thank you for being on the show today, Justin. And for the second time, this was really, really helpful. In the show notes, we will definitely put all of the links for how you can stay in touch with Justin and his team, and definitely reach out to them. You could find him, follow them on social media. You will be highly entertained. I promise you.
Well, you may be less entertained because the ladies have told
The
me
ladies took
I'm
it over.
the dad jokes are cringy. So it's my sense of humor.
I
But
personally love your cringy dad jokes. But anyway, that's fine. They could take the social media to the next level. That's fine. But no, I really appreciate you being here today, Justin. And
thank
for
you
my
too.
viewers and listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And we will see you next time on the Venue Success Podcast.